Hey, are you also on the lookout for a game that is like Darkest Dungeon but isn't Darkest Dungeon? Think Darkest Dungeon but you're the evil? Well, if you are, have a look. I will vanish and let you have a look yourself at the intro cinematic, so to speak.
Life is a disease. A millennium ago, a supreme necromancer was on the verge of conquering the world. But you know what they say about best laid plans. Inevitably, heroes shall emerge. So, I was made dead. Again. But what does death really mean for somebody who has mastered it? Boredom. An eternity to ponder my errors and how close I came to victory. I am a mortal, but when this world ends, even I will know oblivion. And so, I ask myself, will I be given another chance to rise before it happens? Another chance to fulfill my ambition? It seems that fate has smiled after all.
Iratus, Lord of the Dead is a hardcore tactical roguelike. The game is difficult and your minions will likely die, and don't think they are expendable just because they are already dead. Every fight is a challenge and resources are always limited. Enemies are strong and show no mercy, blah 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 blah. The game is now in early access, in-game mechanics, text and balance can be changed in future. So far it seems, from what I've seen, that the largest problem that those that play the game have are critical strikes, because there's block and ward. Block is basically, it blocks one attack or one instance of taking damage, and a ward blocks one instance of a magical attack or magical damage. And crits go straight through that. But that aside, I like the game, but I think there's some things that I can't quite seem to come to gripes with, so to speak. I wish that they were somewhat different, but I can't really define how different as of yet. But anyway, welcome to the game. We're gonna go through a tutorial and it's gonna be a quicker one. To explain, I've already played about 2 hours of the game, and I rage quit. And then I thought to myself, those 2 videos would have been pretty boring, so I'll try to make them less boring. Because I try to make content that I would want to watch myself. That always doesn't work out. So anyway. Evil has returned. The dread necromancer Iratus has attained his freedom after a millennia of imprisonment, and the miners gathered around his tomb still do not know the mortal danger they have stumbled upon. Their bodies will lay the foundation for an army of the dead that will conquer this world. Rise! So this is the combat screen, or the combat phase. Each minion has 5 basic abilities and 1 ultimate ability. The ultimate ability requires Wrath. Minions and enemies can use certain abilities only from specific positions, so there are many similarities between this and the Darkest Dungeon. Now, what's Wrath? Here's the turn order. I like this way better than in Darkest Dungeon, because in Darkest Dungeon, instead of the turn order, you had a torch up here. But it was only a guess at whose turn would it be next. But you got to see who has an action left for the turn. While in here it's separated by the turn counter up here. But I like this better. Now, what you'll notice is that the units are animated, their attacks are animated as well. It's not the, as Total Biscuit put it, stop animation. And I do agree with him that The stop animation of Darkest Dungeon is satisfying. In here I find it less satisfying, but it's different than Darkest Dungeon. It's trying to do its own thing, and I like that. So when I said this is Darkest Dungeon but you're the evil, I meant it. So you got physical, magical, and stress damage. So you got physical and magical will reduce health, known as vigor, and stress will reduce sanity. Crits of your units reduce sanity, enemy crits replenish sanity, just like in Darkest Dungeon. Cursing causes stress over multiple turns, so think bleed, but for stress, for sanity, you know, that's cursing. And igniting is basically bleed, but in magical form. There. So, sanity is... Well, if you reduce sanity of a target, it's very beneficial to you. The moment that an enemy becomes insane, which I think starts at 50% sanity, the damage the target does is reduced by 50%, it has decreased luck, a decreased chance to hit, and stuff like that. Inspiration can occur when a target goes to zero sanity, which is basically a target becomes virtuous and gains bonuses and restores its sanity to full, and that's very dangerous for you. When you reduce a target to 0 sanity, any further stress induced can cause a target to die. And the enemy that's farthest to the right in a group that's fighting you, if it reaches low levels of sanity, I don't know what that is, maybe 20% I think, has a chance to flee each turn. So if it decides to flee, at the start of its turn, it's gonna get a mark that says this target is about to flee. And what the game doesn't tell you is that a fleeing enemy receives 50% extra damage for one turn, you know, the turn before it flees. So that might be useful because you can use a tactic where you just fear the fuck out of the last person on the right, and before he tries to flee, you just nuke him down. But the tutorial doesn't tell you that, but these descriptions are very useful because they tell you exactly, you know, the kind of effect or the kind of information you want to know. Alright, so there are various attacks, and creatures have talents, and they level up, and you can alter effects of these attacks, or you can alter what damage they do, or if they do physical or stress or magical and whatever. There's an attack that ignores armor, which I do not care about at the moment. There's an attack which attacks twice, so if enemy had one armor plate, Smite would remove a plate and then do damage, while the unassuming strike would be negated by the plate.
Death delivered.
Oh, actually. There. Insanity. Minus luck, accuracy, and evasion. And this is tutorial, so I think if this was a regular encounter, it would also give minus damage done. I think. There. Gain some resources, so you gain a lot after each battle, but it's basically components for making units, because you're a necromancer, remember? So create any 2 minions. Right. I'll just do as the tutorial says, because this tutorial will be quicker, because last time I went through it, it was, I think, boring. So after gathering parts from defeated foes, you can add new minions to your army. You have uncommon, rare, legendary, and common. These are common. Components. Most of the time you get common, and if you get better materials, uncommon, rare, or legendary, they give a minion extra stats, sometimes even extra effects. I have yet to see that myself. And it also says that with time you can acquire new ways of creating new minions. That's the locked roster to the left. and various combat tactics, and I find that odd. So I think what it wants to say is new skills. Because you're the one commanding the unit, so why would you need tactics, right? So any new, I'll make a Dark Knight, because that's a pretty good unit.
Everyone needs its generals.
And a Bride of Iratus. So these units sort of fulfill the roles that you would expect. A Dark Knight has less health but is tankier, and can restore its own health, and has a variety of attacks for health, for physical damage and stress damage. A Skeleton is not anyhow special, but it has very good tankiness, even better than the Dark Knight, but has no ways to heal itself. So this is your sort of man-at-arms, let's put it that way. The Dark Knight is a leper, but even more damaging than a leper in certain scenarios. Most of the time it does less damage, but takes less too. Banshee is sort of like the courtier of the ruins. Or, to put it this way, of the equivalent of your units as a player in Darkest Dungeon. This is the Plague Doctor. And the Bride of Iratus seems like so far that it's like a highwayman. Even though it has abilities that do both health and stress damage. So anyway, to start combat, you open the map. Now, the kingdom had need of the vast riches buried underneath the castle. Great veins of iron that promised to fuel conquest after conquest, along with ancient artifacts from a long-forgotten age. And I just realized that it's probably better if I go over here to the side. No? Or actually bottom right? Bottom right could be better. Great veins of iron that promised to fuel conquest after conquest, along with ancient artifacts from a long-forgotten age. The dwarves were eager to offer their services in this project, bringing their untested mining equipment and experimental concoctions for the promise of wealth. They only needed bodies that could obey, and that the humans could provide. Workers. With dungeons filled to the brim with both criminals and rebels, there was no shortage of slaves to work these mines. Drugs were used to keep them docile as they dug ever deeper, year after year, unaware of the mortal danger that awaited them below. So, this is the game's way of saying, why will the first level be easier, the second harder, etc, etc. Because you're fighting drugged slaves, basically. But even drugged slaves can be pretty dangerous. Especially if given untested experimental equipment, mind you. I managed to rage quit in the first level. So, let's get into a battle. So you have parties, and you switch out among these on the go. Why does that matter? Well, you'll find out once the game allows me to go into the base and build. Some enemies possess unique features that either strengthen or weaken them. Study the features so that you don't get destroyed like I did. And find out too late that a certain enemy is immune to a damage type, can redirect attacks onto itself, cannot retreat or flee, is immune to stress and whatever. Fire!
One less annoyance in the world.
Oh, the Taskmaster is... There are apparently enemies that will do damage to their allies or cause stress damage to their allies, but in exchange they will buff them in the way. So when you see the Taskmaster doesn't do all that much by his own, but he can buff his friendlies, and he starts with armor and a ward. Armor means that the next physical attack will be blocked, and the ward, the next magical or stress attack will be blocked. So to demonstrate, this should get blocked if I'm not mistaken. There's the window. Oh, and there's a difference between... oh, and there's also armor and block. Oh, sorry. Armor and resistance, there. Armor is for physical, resistance for magical, and then block and ward are the blockers that will nullify damage received. So the Dark Knight doesn't do all that much, but he can give you Wrath and mana. Wrath is for the ultimate, or sort of special ability of each of the characters. For the Dark Knight, it's basically steal 12 health from each enemy and heal for up to 48 himself. That amount can increase, and so he can charge it up for you, or he can just do damage. Let's try doing some stress. I think that for this game, having the characters be animated works better. I don't think that stop motion would work for this game, just like in the Darkest Dungeon.
Terror will overflow.
Alright. At the start of each turn, loses 40% of its maximum health, receives an extra action. Oh, so there are various effects of insanity. So this is... Oh, I see now. Ah. So it's best to be on the lookout when a character goes insane. So if he loses 40%, that would be what? Around 20 health? I can't kill him, but I can make him go insane even further. The reason why he did less damage on his first action was because Soprano of the Banshee reduces damage of a target of all enemies affected by a set amount. Now he will lose health upon us on the turn start, so just hit him and he's gonna vanish.
This is my kind of entertainment.
%75% chance to attack an ally. Well, there's no allies to be attacked. I didn't know that. I didn't notice it yesterday. So you should be on the lookout for what kind of insanity a target gets. Ah, I see.
A sad display for mortal kind.
So after winning a battle, you receive Architect Souls, which is for constructing and improving buildings in your base. Materials for your minions. Artifacts, which are equipable items, which can also be used to improve the minions themselves. Brains, which can be used to replace a target's brain to level it up. Because these characters of yours, they will level up on their own as they progress through battles, which is symbolized by 1 level equals 10 IQ. So if you find a brain that has 50 IQ, you can use it to replace a minion's brain that has like 20 IQ and cause it to go from level 2 to level 5 and get free skill points, which is really good. And minions that did not participate in a battle restore small amount of health, just like in Darkest Dungeon. Except, the characters do not fully heal upon returning to town, because they're always on the move, so you have to manage their health until you finish a level, I think. So there's XP, the skeleton took a lot of beating, I got a scroll, some materials, and XP for myself. Equip me with an artifact. There are 4 main types: weapons, armor, rings, and amulets, and consumables. At the beginning of the game, you receive 1 random artifact. So you receive a scroll. It's one-time use.
My undead features.
Into the dungeon. And there are quests, there are items, there are chests with artifacts, there are free units. That's these graves. There are elite fights, there are boss battles, there are sacrificial altars, there's interesting stuff. So let's go on to the fountain over... There's a free unit on the right side, and actually quite a lot of stuff on the left. Let's go to the left. Since I know that this tutorial will not last for long, it can, but I don't want it to. I'll go to the left. So, here's an introduction to mana and wrath. Mana is needed to use talents from magic, iron, destruction trees. That's talents of the necromancer, of you. Mana is restored after victory, through minion abilities, like the one I showed you on the Dark Knight, or through encounters on the map, like the Fountain, where you can choose either health for minions or mana for yourself. Wrath is needed for the special ability of each of the characters, is generated during combat, and is set to 0 upon combat end, so you best spend it. Miner doesn't seem to have a lot of sanity to begin with, but... So here's a stance. Stances are, well, abilities that will put a target into a stance for either a turn or until the end of combat, and they can sometimes be very useful. So when I said the skeleton is very tanky, it is. I just haven't been using the tanky ability so far. This character goes into a one-turn stance, where he gains 8 armor. That means any physical attack against him is reduced by 8. And so far everyone does 8 or less, sort of. And even then it's gonna reduce the higher attacks by quite a lot, and gains magical resistance. And enemies will attack you more often. There it is. Stances can be interrupted, or cancelled, etc. through forced movement or stunning, unless the stance description says otherwise. Should be going insane soon.
Oh, I didn't think it would be this easy.
This might seem boring to keep on clicking one action with the skeleton, but honestly, in this game, if you sometimes don't do boring shit, you're gonna get destroyed. And the boring shit might just be what you need to survive in some scenarios. Like I was using the Dark Knight's Abyssal Hunger. Oh, you can't see the portraits. Oh, sorry. Alright, this should be better. Or actually, here. This shouldn't be blocking anything. So, I once managed to win against the enemy that was immune and did more damage than anything I encountered, with the use of Abyssal Hunger. I just kept clicking it over and over because so much wrath was being generated that fight. And that was the only reason why I won. In there. Alright. Oh, it's also a self debuff removal. Oh, good. Each time an enemy receives a buff. Yeah, that's a stance. There's no need for that. Unlucky.
Being born was your first mistake. Opposing me? Your last.
There are subtitles, if you want to know what Iratus, the necromancer, the announcer says. I turned them off, because the subtitles are quite big. Oh, what's that? Loses all block, ward, armor resistance, decreases damage dealt by 50% and minus luck. This is the one I meant. Pretty devastating. So even though, here we go, there's a stress attack. Deals stress damage to all enemies, quite a lot. But it costs 40 wrath. The chance to flee increases by 20% each turn. Before the beginning of their turn, deal stress damage to all allies, equal to Oh, so over 5 turns he would turn everyone insane. Oh, well, that's a taskmaster. Alright. If I'm not gonna kill him, the taskmaster will. What I do know, I would done somehow differently, but I don't really know if that solution would work.
Keeps up, I'll be done purging the world ahead of schedule.
Is that I would appreciate... I really like the announcer in Darkest Dungeon because he comments on both successes and failures. The Iratus, you in here, do as well, but not in the way that the announcer in the Darkest Dungeon does. Because, after all, you, the necromancer, what would it be? Or how would you explain that you comment onto your failures with such gusto, with such joy? It's like you want to win, right? You want to conquer the world. Whereas the ancestor in Darkest Dungeon doesn't really want any of that. He's just there to watch. Or is he? I'm not gonna spoil the ending of Darkest Dungeon for you. Anyway. Here's the talents. So winning battles rewards experience for you and for your creatures. You have Alchemy, Magic, Ire, and Destruction. Alchemy is your boring upgrades that will, however, allow you to recover from mistakes faster, learn the game better, or have more materials to work with, etc. Magic is basically weaken everyone using mana. Ire is make minions stronger, use mana, and Destruction does direct damage, either physical, magical, or stress, but from what I've seen so far, some of the abilities, for example, there's an ability that causes 35 stress damage to someone, but it then does 30 damage to a minion of yours in exchange. It's like, that's not really that great, is it? So, I'll pick, for the sake of demonstration. See, there's Sorrow. Deal 20 stress damage. And then there's deal 35 to 45 stress damage, and cost mana, and do 20 damage to a random minion of yours. Sorrow seems pretty good, actually. All minions gain initiative.
My magic will shake the very foundations of this world.
At the start of its turn, a minion gains +2 initiative if Iratus has at least 25 wrath. So you can...
I embrace this fury.
So you can get some interesting combos into action. Synergistic too.
All for my future kingdom.
Another battle. Keep in mind, this is a tutorial difficulty, so everything is made super easy. Alright, now. The further you go, the stronger stats the enemies will have, that's another thing. 24 wrath. 33. 42. We're getting to 60. Yeah, it's 60. Alright, so let's heal himself.
Speed of thought.
There, and I'm gonna get the first turn here. So minus 12 health for everyone. Loses all initiative. Oh no. Oh no. Well, that's the thing. Skeleton is immune to debuffs, and the Dark Knight can purge all debuffs, so they make a pretty good front line.
Speed of thought.
If that skeleton wasn't in a defensive stance, it would have taken around 30 to 40 damage, so...
Pray for an excellent source of fresh corpses. Hope there will still be enough left to reanimate.
It's honestly more of a drag to try and whittle down the sanity, because he has only 38 health but 52 sanity.
A predictable outcome.
Improve a minion by using a brain. So, instead of improving the bride, I'll improve the Dark Knight. Alright, so you can level a creature, as I said, by giving it a better brain, improve its abilities, that's over here, use parts of a higher quality, give it items, and... So this brain has 40 IQ, he has 20, so I'll give him a better brain. Hey. And he's gonna suddenly be level 4. But just as quickly as you can level someone, that's how quickly you can also lose at someone. So let's say... I might pick that.
Prove yourself worthy of my investment.
There.
Get back to battle. My enemies are in for a nasty surprise.
Yay, found a box, a loot box. After killing an enemy with a critical hit, a minion gains 1 XP. That's not bad, but I'll instead take Ring of Decay, because it's gonna make advancing easier. Speaking of which, let's equip it. You gotta remember to equip items, I forgot to do that actually. Who will be trained? Iratus or minions? Say minions, and they all gain the level up. So planning is a big part of playing this game. So if you intend to watch someone play this, I think it's safe to say that it will not be as quick as Darkest Dungeon can be at times.
Serve me well, my minion.
Mm-hmm. Alright, here's a free unit. Here's a free unit. There's a lot of attacks. I mean, a lot of attacks, a lot of battles. There's another free unit. What if I go up? There's quests, there's things. Alright, going to the right we are. And there's the golem. That's the reason why I rage quit yesterday. Fun.
Speed of thought.
So the problem with the golem is, suddenly, out of nowhere, this does 12 to 14, this does 7 to 9, this does 4 to 8, this has 80 health, 95, 80, and this has 90 health, does 20 to 40, is immune to stress, has chance to redirect attacks onto itself, immune to ignition, doesn't escape, and blah blah blah. It's so fucking overpowered. It's crazy. Anyway, well, let's generate. Actually, no, let's not. That's gonna put in one forward. Okay. Well, actually. So if they attack the boner, they'll get stress in return.
Extinction of life.
Oh, perfect! Betrayal! This one has cowardice, will attempt to flee, while the golem keeps on buffing itself.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Ah, that one's gonna kill itself. Alright. Clank, clank. I didn't know what I was doing yesterday, but today I do. Needless to say, the golem is still very tanky and a big problem. The problem with using a single target attack onto the Taskmaster is that it could redirect onto the golem and have no effect whatsoever. So I'd rather have some effect than, you know, than none. Now we're getting close to 56. Ah, damn it, almost.
Become part of the breathless tide.
Miss. Ouch. 5 damage. Yes.
Soon this world will be mine.
Now, on to the base. Graveyard and construction. After attaining freedom, Iratus turned this prison into a base of operations, so you can construct buildings. The buildings will demand the sacrifice of a unit, sometimes multiple, and the architect's souls. And the buildings need to be staffed by minions, and the more minions there are, staffed or working or doing whatever, the greater the gain per battle, because you gain the effect after a battle. I think after a victory, not really just a battle. So, let's say I want Mortuary, which is incredibly powerful, and any minion that will be put in gets full health after a battle, except quest battles. And they want a zombie to build it, so I have to go back in, get a zombie, preferably level 1, and not the one that I invested a hollow into.
Time to bring out the big guns.
And it's actually a cannon zombie. And build a mortuary.
Tissue is not an easy process, as it involves completely reversing the natural process of decay. Cold and utter silence are key in accomplishing this.
Alright. Now put a oh. I haven't really found out what do I do in here, because you can transform one type into another, increase quality of parts, grab items from available parts, and use parts to gain mana, but none of this I'm really interested in at all, because I haven't unlocked any newer recipes, etc. And that concludes the tutorial. It's currently on the easiest of difficulties. There's 4. There's Cakewalk, More Pain, and then other 2 which are locked, until I think you finish something in the game. Or maybe finish the game itself. I'm not sure. I know for one that if you try to, you know, make... If you want to get units, you have to perform certain tasks. So... To get a Lich, I have to kill 2 more enemies. To get a Mummy, I have to get a unit to level 5, etc. So it's this unlocking as you go. So let's try unlocking the Lich. That'll give me some more info for my real playthrough. So I already locked myself out of here. You cannot backtrack, unlike in Darkest Dungeon, which is a shame, but hey. So let's head on to... Once you encounter an enemy type, question marks, which are that enemy, will be replaced by the portrait, and you know what you're up against. So now that I fought the golem, I will know when I'm up against it what it is, I think. That it is a golem, you know. But there are quite a lot of question marks ahead of me. This is the last battle where I know what's going on, so to speak.
Speed of thought.
Clank, clank. Oh wait, no, this isn't the skilled one, huh?
Your frail bodies fail you.
And the reason why the Dark Knight is so great is because, well, once I get him to the front line, he can also just heal up and doesn't need to be in the mortuary all that often.
He dies so that you can live. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
There we go. Lich unlocked.
Mine is the winning side.
So that boner healed up. Now, when it comes to arena, you can put in a skeleton, and then you can put in a minion. There can be up to 4, but initially 1 minion, and he will gain 2 experience per battle. And I managed to put a zombie there when I was playing yesterday, and over the course of 3 battles, it got more experience than a zombie that was actually fighting, so do not underestimate the buildings. They are a crucial part as well. So, since this skeleton already got or seen a fair bit of his fight, fair bit of fighting here, I'm gonna sacrifice another.
Becoming undead eliminates almost all memories and useful skills from the subject. However, new knowledge can be taught through the application of controlled combat.
And the units also have descriptions. Some of them are interesting, like you get to find out how a cannon zombie came to be. You know?
They will be expecting cannon fodder, but I will give them cannons instead.
So, about the zombie. Before Iratus came along, zombies were considered little more than fodder troop by other necromancers. It took a true visionary to realize that a mindless mass of undead muscle can be used for more than simply bashing the heads of mortals. With a bit of technological assistance, these rotting hulks were turned into mobile artillery capable of carrying and shooting cannons that would normally need several humans to operate. Good, good, I like that. You know, taking a look onto... When you're making a game, that's what Ben Brode, the former lead dev of Hearthstone, I think, said on one of his developer talks. He said, it's great to look at a game when you're making it and say, okay, if this is true, ask yourself, what else is true? So like if you have a zombie, if it's so strong, what else is true? Well, what can it do? Something that one human could do as well, but it doesn't have the muscle to do it. Well, stuff like that. Lich, a powerful magical minion, but not really a true lich. Rather, these are pseudo-liches that borrow some of the designs made by necromancers of old. Most notably, these minions do not actually hold the soul of a necromancer, instead they serve as carriers for devastating spells. They have, however, been known to take on the mannerisms of their creator, which can be so convincing that the other undead tend to obey them. A lot of damage, actually.
Might I use this one sparingly if I care for my minions? Hmm?
That's a level 3 brain. Oh, actually, I'll use it. Yes. Level him up to par with others. This would be a great synergy with Dark Knight in the first position. Deal 26 to 28 to 2 enemies, and an ally on first position. So when you generate Wrath, you know where I'm headed, right? I generate Wrath, do a lot of damage, get through fights faster, and Dark Knight's gonna end up healing himself for a lot anyway. Let's see if it works. Selected ally gains attack and dread. Perfect. And let's test out the Lich. Actually, I could sacrifice her, but whatever. There. I get a free unit. If I get a choice of a bride, which I didn't. Oh well. I'll choose another boner. And there is a new enemy type. The Doomsayer, which I thought would be a unit of mine, but you know.
Speed of thought.
The Doomsayer can be a very dangerous enemy. Support kills an ally. That's a support. The Lich and all allies gain 45 health. Selected ally creates a cloud. Summons a skeleton. Oh. Oh, so that's why you would want to... Oh, I see. I see. Alright. Can use it on himself? No, he can't. Fire. So I should switch him. I wonder if you get to keep the skeleton when the battle finishes. I guess the answer is yes. When this character dies, the Doomsayer and all his allies restore 50 health, 50 sanity, so don't kill him.
You will soon embrace your new existence.
Oh, fuck. He's marking way too much on his friendlies. Oh, and they're paying him back for it.
This one voided its bowels.
Perfect.
Just as it died.
See? So there's already a combo. Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. Oh no. At the beginning of next turn does 12 to 14 magical to all friendlies and enemies. Yes,
This
melted.
never gets old.
Yeah, Yeah, the Lich and Dark Knight seem like that's gonna be a great combo. Full health.
Mop up the gore. I'd hate to see plants using it as fertilizer.
So the skeleton gained 2 XP. It's now level 2. It's gonna keep on training. And I have 2 talents that I could spend. You know, each tier costs plus 1 point. So 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4. But that's about it for the tutorial and for a short demonstration of this game. I expect to be playing through it for the little time that I have before I start working again. So, see you in the next one.